Hey people, it's me again. So, anyways, it's December 22nd, and I keep forgetting when is usually the solstice as far as that goes. And usually the solstice is one of the most powerful days when it comes to like manifestation portals. I mean, but then, as far as that goes, it depends on what value you assign that manifestation portal, and then whatever methods of manifestation of that sort. What if it's like scripting, state akin to sleep, um, affirmations, and vision boards, visualizations, meditations, and whatnot. Yeah. So, one of the things I have to kind of mention here when it comes to my own manifestation journey of that sort, when it came to my SP that I refer to as J2 for that matter, and in a way, I just don't feel bothered by not having him, and I just don't even feel any kind of jealousy, just because he's dating somebody else who happens to have the same name as me and all of this, and which is kind of really strange out of all that, out of all the people they can possibly date to date someone that has the same name as me. That just sounds like, to me, someone's still obsessed with me, you know. And then the truth there is that I just kind of want to, be in a relationship maybe about a couple of years down the road. I feel like, you know, because of what happened with him and losing his husband, about 3 years ago was tragic in and of itself. But I feel like I can just wait a bit because since, you know, all of these people that came out of the woodwork, out of just sympathy and all this, they have all had moved on by now. Even the people who tell me to forget about this guy had probably also moved on, you know. And then I have a feeling like when it comes to that boyfriend of his will probably disappear at some point or another, so it just doesn't really matter if I don't have that person there. Because at the same time, I could also just get with somebody else at that point. Because after all, the whole reason I kept referring to him as J2 because there has to be a J1, and that J1 is really what I refer to as the guy from Finland, you know. And the fact when it came to that guy, it's like, well, he's still going to be here in America for a while because as far as getting his green card, and so that's another thing there. And then there could be a point when it came to this guy that he could probably be completely over the being divorced, because after all, it's been going to be like 5 years since he's been divorced. So that's another thing altogether, and so he might be ready for someone new at that point, I mean, after being divorced for that long is another thing. But yet, there's also these other guys that I could also get with, as far as that goes. And so, it is just one of those little things again. But I think of it as having all those choices is like, if I have some sort of like open ticket, at LAX where I could go on any flight on any airline at any time of that day, and then I have the choice there. Where if it's just going like to Las Vegas or going so far as like you know Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, or Sydney, Australia, or whatnot. You know, and so that's like the whole point of like a multiverse theory, or why the master station coaches say you have infinite chances with your specific person, and that your specific person always conforms to all of that, and so you have to also be careful about what things you're kind of putting into it, positive or negative, you know. And it's just one of those little things. Again, it's all within you, and rather than just seeking it externally, because that was one of the things that a lot of the manifestation coaches had said, not to get too caught up with the, what was it called, the synchronicities as far as that goes, because it is kind of going the other, it is basically the other way around, as far as that goes. It is basically signs follow, not proceed, when it comes to that. You know what I mean? And in a way, it's like you create your own future. You create your own, inner dialogues and whatever it is when it comes to your specific person, your own story of that sort. And so it just, as I said earlier, it doesn't matter what the circumstance may be. It doesn't matter if they blocked you or they told you they're not interested in blah blah blah, because their feelings could shift. How many times when we encounter people who clearly say they don't want us, they don't want anything to do with us, and then all of a sudden, then they start begging for us back, because we have other options. Because after all, we always have options when it comes to our SP. And then we could also choose not to have anything to do with that SP, and it's perfectly fine. So, anyways, I hope you guys have a good Christmas, New Year's, and whatever you believe in at this point. So, talk to you guys later.